So what has it been for you now? How many years in the business?
How many years?
Yeah, how many years?
Must have been 15.
15 now since, yeah, you started what, 2003? That was, you were in the first class, so 2004 was your debut. What month?
It was April, actually.
April, there you go, yeah, wow.
I think it was April the 10th.
How about that? Yeah, this year is actually in January. It was January 7th, 26 years for me.
Okay, yeah.
So,
well, it's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's been a while, yeah. When did you actually want to get into it?
Since I saw wrestling in the first place, like it's a difficult question because I always wanted to get to wrestle. Simple as that.
How old were you when you first saw it?
I started watching wrestling in the 90s, in the early 90s. It's actually European wrestling that I would watch.
Oh, really?
People like Dave Finlay and Dave Taylor, Drew McDonald. I even saw Chris Benoit wrestling in the US.
In France?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's for Flesh Gordon.
Yes, and it was against Colonel Brody.
Colonel Brody, geez, what a name, what a blast from the past that is. But yeah, I mean, I was actually, 6 years old, I think I was. First time in Timmins, Ontario, where I was born, and we were at a family friend's home, and I saw on television for the first time. I mean, all I remember is a blonde, hulking, it wasn't Hulk Hogan, but I mean, a blonde, hulking, muscular wrestler in tights. And I think as a little boy, you can identify with that because you're always, looking for things which are muscular and powerful and things like that. I think it's just a reflection of your own developing masculinity, and it's internal, it's just inbuilt in you. But, I like superheroes, I like the Incredible Hulk. So for me, it was like the superheroes come to life.
Yeah. I was thinking about the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think that I knew right then and there, it's just, I never thought I'd be a wrestler, to be honest with you. I mean, I think because my family is pretty, how could you say, I wouldn't say poor, but we were middle class, lower middle class. And I think it was because of the fact that we never had much money that I never thought that I'd have enough money to get trained in pro wrestling. But still, that's what ended up happening anyway, so there you go.
What has happened?
Yeah, and everything happens for a reason. And I'm happy that it actually worked out this way. Yeah.
Also, it has a lot to do with the fact that I became a wrestler. But for some reason, you moved to Finland and it started like that.
Yeah, that was 2003 at the Klondike building in Graphause, Finland. And that first class. What do you remember out of that first class, by the way? There was like about 20 guys there originally.
Less than that, but...
was it less?
I was the oldest guy. I was in the best shape.
Yeah, you were in the best shape. Yeah, there was... I remember we had some guys come and go too. That there was a black guy there for a while too. He was pretty put together, but he was there for only just a few weeks.
Yeah.
But it was 4 days a week. Remember that? It was Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays.
Yeah, and like in a way it was like twice a day because we started at 10 o'clock and it was until 4 o'clock or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we just had the lunch break in between. Yeah. It was pretty intense. But yeah, geez. Good memories.
Not so good. It was tough, but and also in addition, you would have to do the training at the gym also.
Oh yeah, but you have to. I think that's the one thing that so many nowadays they maybe have forgotten, that it's, even if you're a fan of the business, that what this requires, not just because of the beatings that you take in the ring, but just because of the commercial value of your piece of work, is that you got to be put together. You have to look like something. So how do you feel after all these years? How's your body holding up?
Pretty well, actually. I cannot complain, I must say.
You can't complain? There's no aches and pains, no...
Well, there are some, but the thing is that it's part of the art or the skill, actually, to avoid injuries. It's one of the main parts.
Well, that's it. I mean, you should step out of the ring the same that you come into the ring, right?
Yeah.
That's part of... I guess, the one thing a lot of people don't realize is that all the bumps that we take in training, once, you start your career, and in the initial training period, plus the first few years, you just take bumps upon bumps, like thousands and thousands of bumps. And the reason for that is because you try to stay healthy, because you fall without actually breaking your body. And yeah, it's
Many people, when they talk about their experience as wrestlers, they keep talking about their injuries, which is not a good thing to have those.
yeah. I mean, it's like a lot of times when I'm interviewed by the press. I mean, a lot of times they do ask me, about my injuries, and of course I've got a whole truckload of them. So, but I mean, I think the reason why I talk about them is just because I think that it brings a certain credibility and legitimacy to what we do. That it's not dancing, it's not ballet, it's not fake as people like to think it is.
Yeah, and also because you had such a long career, it's impossible to avoid those. But it's more like what I meant is that people want to brag about them.
Yeah. Well, that's different. Yeah.
Young guys and those who haven't been wrestling that long.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. But so I mean, so you've been now doing what 15 years? So what do you think? Like from now on, from here on forward, how long do you think you still want to keep on doing it?
Well, I'm looking forward to the next 15 years.
Well, there you go. That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, but you've been talking about wrestling at the age of 50, so it's not impossible to do that or last even longer.
You know, the funny thing is Dory Funk Jr., the old NWA world champion, he still wrestles, I guess, once or twice a year in Japan. Every single year. He goes there 1 or 2 times a year, and he's over the age of 70. Which, at that point, you're not quite sure if you're doing yourself any favors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's true. But it depends so much because it depends. It's an individual thing if you're able to do it or not.
Yeah, I remember actually the first time that I saw an older guy, when I say like older, I mean really older guy, wrestle was, I think it was 1992, if I remember correctly. It was Lou Thez came out of retirement to wrestle Masa Chono at the Tokyo Dome. It was like only 5 minutes, 5-6 minutes of the match itself, but I thought to myself, for Lou Thez to still be able to get into the ring, you knew he wasn't going to win that match. I mean, that's just, it's a granted, but for him to stick in there with Masa Chono for even 5-6 minutes, I thought was pretty commendable.
Mm.
And I mean, I personally remember back in 2011, I wrestled Dave Finlay in Japan, and I dropped the Smash Championship to him in Tokyo. And he was 51 at the time, I was 38. And he was in so much better condition than I was. He was like in superior physical condition. And I thought to myself that's the milestone right there. He's the standard bearer.
Mm.
And I asked him before the match, I said, does anything on your body hurt? He said, nothing, I'm made out of Teflon.
Yeah.
And I thought that's amazing that at 51 years of age, this guy's been in the business for 37 years, 37 active years, and nothing hurts. I mean, he's done something right.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing. And that's actually what I had in mind when I said that it's an individual thing, because some people are built like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I often say, because when I run Slam Wrestling Finland, I have so many guys and girls that they write to me, can I get some bookings with your company? And I think to myself, sometimes I even tell these people that, if you don't have a track record in our business, and if you don't have, let's say, the arguments needed to get booked, then I'm taking a risk on you, and I have to pay for your flight. I got to pay for your accommodation. I got to pay your wage. And the thing is that if I can't make my money back on that investment, then what am I paying for? And the number one thing that I think people got to realize is that if I can't put you on a poster, if I can't put your picture on a graphic that advertises the event that you'll be wrestling at, and if your picture doesn't draw attention to make other people want to buy tickets to the show, because they don't know who you are, but just because your visage or your image would make people want to buy tickets, then I have no grounds to book you.
Yeah. And also, it's not just the muscles or the appearance, but the presence also.
Yeah, the presence, and then, of course, the whole ball of wax, the aptitude, the charisma, the actual skill to do. And then I think the older that I get as a person, at least what I'm looking for as an individual, I guess, is good people. You want to work with good people. And as I've often said, when I wrestled in Japan extensively in the beginning of the 2010 period, 2010s to 2014, I told one of the head honchos of WNC, which was Wrestling New Classic. His name was Matsuzawa. I said to him that, the wrestling business is full of good wrestlers, but it's not full of good people. And if you find somebody who's a good wrestler and a good person, you've hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
And I still believe that to this day. So that's why I think that you want to work with people that are reliable, that are good people deep down. People that are, if you give them an opportunity, that they're going to appreciate that, they're going to respect that, and then they're going to give back to the business. That's really what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Teachable, coachable people.
And also the example thing that you are like passing it on to the next generation.
So what do you think, like, looking back on your career now and all the different years that you've been in the business, you've seen the business evolve to some degree, of course, and you've been to several countries. Have you counted the countries so far, by the way?
9, I believe. So I'd like to make it to the 10 first, and then maybe 12.
Yeah. It's a kind of a bummer because I've been in business now 26 years in ring. 28 if you count the entire time that I've been, but I've got 22 countries, and the thing is, for 26 years, I'd like to have one country per year. So I'm lagging behind right now, but it's funny because the business has changed, and the thing is that I think now with the coronavirus era, it's going to change even more, and there's less and less money going around. And the thing is that, in a way, the pay scale in pro wrestling, at least in the indies, has not gone up. Over the past, I would say 15, 20 years, whatever the guys were getting paid, let's say even back in Hanover, for the tournaments back in the Otto Wands and Peter William era, it's more or less, the pay has stayed the same. But the thing is that with inflation, of course, the cost of living goes up, and it's not the same money anymore. And in that way, it's like, that's one of the changes, like for me at least, that there has to be a motor, there has to be some kind of a driving force why you want to continue, why you want to keep on doing this thing. For me personally, I looked at my life, when I turned 45 a couple of years ago, I looked at my life and I thought that, how long do I want to still keep doing this? And then I remembered Dave Finlay at 51. And I thought to myself that, if you don't have some kind of a goal, some kind of a destination that you need to get to, that makes you strive forward, that makes you push forward, it's kind of like you lose focus and you have no reason to keep doing what you're doing. So I think, like, when people, for example, when they retire, so to speak, and they lack that motor that drives them, I think that's when they begin to drift, and that's when they lose whatever that, how could you say, that elusive something was, and then they get out of shape, and then they start getting, they start getting fat, or then they start, the injuries start to pile up because they become sedative and complacent. And I don't want to be that guy. And that's where I thought to myself that, I remember Bret Hart once said that he doesn't want to see anybody wrestle, or doesn't want to see anybody see him wrestle as an old man, because it's not very befitting to what, you want to leave behind as a legacy. And I thought to myself that, well, even with that, I think of Ric Flair sometimes, and I thought, he really should have stopped at that match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. That was, at 59 years of age, that's the time when he should have just said enough is enough. Because it's a great way to go out at WrestleMania, against one of the greats. But then I thought, like myself, that how long do I want to keep doing this personally? And I thought that, well, I need something to keep me sharp, to keep me on the edge. I need something that's going to be a primus motor for me, like a motivation as to keeping myself fit and to keeping myself in the best condition possible, and to pushing my own personal envelope to see how far I can go. Not just in wrestling, but I think as a person, just as a man. And because I don't want to be like the status quo. I don't want to be like everybody else. What about you?
I want to be the good example,
To the younger generation.
Yeah, and show them that you're able to do it, and you still can be able to do it in a good way.
So what about you as far as your personal favorite matches in your career? The ones that you wrestled?
Matches?
Yeah, the ones that you wrestled yourself.
Well, the best one would be the one against you in 2006.
Oh, the Iron Man match. Yeah, you know what pisses me off to this day is the promoter didn't have a video camera, video crew.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my friend Kari Helenius, who was there photographing the event, we would have no documentation of that entire match.
I know what you're talking about, but then again, maybe it was meant to be that way.
Yeah, I don't know. It ate me alive for like maybe 3 years afterwards. That is just one of the best matches I ever wrestled, even to this day. You know, in all my years, it's.
There was something special in that evening. So
Yeah, and it was a masterpiece as far as the match itself for 30 minutes. I remember that crowd was chanting StarBuck Adder, StarBuck Adder for 30 minutes straight. There was one lull, one moment where they got a bit quiet, and then I think I had you upside down in the corner in the Tree of Woe, and I drop kicked your face upside down in the corner, and right then they erupted again. StarBuck Adder, Star. It was amazing.
yeah, it never happened again.
And no, we never had that same air of just magic.
Yeah.
I think in our matches,
nobody else did.
no, nobody could touch that. And to this day in this country, nobody could touch it. So, yeah, it's true. It's true. What about like your other matches? That's like one of them, but
One that I really like is the match I had against Kageman Guro in Talvisota 4, was it? When Tajiri was here.
oh, 2010, yeah. How did you say that? Was it Kagemanguro or Kagemanguro? Which one is it?
Kageman Guro.
He, the thing is, he himself, he never actually came to terms with how to say his own name.
Yeah, it's having too many ideas.
He wanted to split the name up, and it was Kage and then Manguro, or was it then Kageman and Guro? So just Guro.
But anyway, about the match, it was very. It was like a very wrestling martial arts based match, much like the UWF.
Yeah. But do you think that the people that night understood what you were doing?
Not really. Like I think they were able to like not understand, like in the sense that they were not thinking about what was going on, but they would still understand that these guys know what they're doing.
Now, that was a shoot right down the middle too.
Yeah.
Legitimate shoot.
Yes.
Yeah. And you had what, 3 judges? Remember that? Yeah.
That too was something that we've never done before or since.
Yeah. Absolutely. But what about, you have a third match? Stands out in your mind?
There's been like good technical matches, British style matches. A couple of those. One against Johnny McMetal. One against Ibo 10. That was in Tuuri. Remember?
Outside of Finland, though, you have none?
Oh yes, those two. But Japan is one place that I have to mention because it is Japan. And it was like a tag team match.
6-man, right?
Yeah. Finland versus Japan. We won.
Now, you were the monkey man.
Yeah. I am the monkey man.
I remember those vignettes, by the way.
Yeah.
Actually, Tajiri, he said to me at one point, because the thing is that I had, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe carte blanche, but I mean, I had the run of choosing who I wanted to bring to Japan, because I was very important to their office. I was the main liaison between Europe and between Japan. I worked out all the contracts for the foreign guys, for Smash and also in WNC. And I remember at one point, Tajiri, he said, that, who would you like to see come to Japan? And I dropped your name. I said at that point, that bring back Stark Adder. And he openly said that they miscast you. They missed the boat on your character. They gave you a bad impression with that monkey type of gimmick, and they can't recoup that anymore. So they can't bring you back.
Yeah, but like I said, what happens, and all things happen for some reason.
Exactly, and the thing is that it's like, that's the one thing with our business, is that sometimes we're typecast in certain roles and we can't do anything but just run with it and just try to make the best of it. And it's like those are the cards that were dealt to us at that time. So what can you do? I think for me, my favorite matches, it's really tough to say because I've had so many for different reasons. I think the match that we had that you mentioned, the 2 out of 3 fall, or no, it was Iron Man. Yeah, sorry. 30 minutes straight. That was one of my favorites. But then I think that, one of my 2 matches with Steve Carino has to stand out because of the fact I think that's like one thing that cemented me European-wise, like on the map, especially in Finland. I think it did. I think I'd have to say my match with Tajiri from Smash 10 in Japan, JCB Hall in 2010. It was November 22nd. I suffered a concussion in that match, but then I dropped the Finnish championship to him. But it was a very special match because I mean I was the main event and I was the general in that match. So it was like I think that's. But there were so many other ones too. I mean the match with Dave Finlay that I had 1 year later in 2011. I think that I learned so much in the context of 16 minutes that it's to this day I'm amazed at the lessons that I learned in just one match, wrestling against a guy, a master like Dave Finlay.
What about other people's matches?
Other people's, as far as like what I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
Ooh, I would say, just single matches. That's really tough. But I would say like the work of what wrestlers work I'm a fan of, or what wrestlers I've picked up on the most. I would say Tully Blanchard from the old Four Horsemen back in like 86, 87. As a heel especially, because he's minimalistic. He doesn't do hardly anything in his matches, but it's amazing the flow and the energy and just that the drive in his matches. It's just, and the fact that he can make that babyface look as good as he can and then just still look like a killer himself, look like a master, look like a conniving bastard, and have people jumping out of their seats. That's pretty special. Dick Murdoch, I think, is one of the old timers. I stole his cattle brander. I stole some other things from Dick Murdoch's repertoire. Keiji Mutoh, the great Muta. I wrestled him once in a 6-man in 2011 and in Japan for All Japan Pro Wrestling. And that was a special match. I always wanted to have a singles match with Mutoh.
Yeah. One of the best matches that I have seen is Mutoh against Don Fry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don Fry. Wow, that's from New Japan, right?
Yes.
What year was that?
I don't know what year it was, but well, he used to be a UFC champion, so after that.
Yeah, so that would be like early 90s, mid 90s, maybe mid 90s, I think. Yeah, right. Maybe, or maybe 97 even.
Yes.
But yeah, I got to check that out. Muto is already losing his hair by that time.
Oh. Okay.
That's
well,
why.
So am I, so it's not a problem.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Testosterone.
Oh, that too. I think for me, Muto versus Hase, I think as a match, it's a hell of a match.
Okay.
But as far as stylistically, I think the biggest influence on my career was hands down Ric Flair. The Flair Steamboat trilogy from '89, I think is, of course, you can't do better than that. By the same token, I would say that Bret Hart, equally so. I mean, coming up in Calgary in the business, I think that the Bret Hart style of wrestling was something that I think that so many guys idolized, and it was legitimate looking, and I think it was safe. He never compromised his health by doing stupid spots. So I think it was, he was as good gets. It wasn't just the catchphrase like the excellence of execution. Yeah. It's like The Rock, like shut your mouth and know your role. It's not just the catchphrase, it's the way that things work in our business. So, but what about like for you, other matches or wrestlers that you looked up to?
Well, of course, there's WrestleMania 20, Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels, Triple H.
Oh, you can't get better than Benoit. For whatever, I know that Dark Side of the Ring just came out and brought up some old wounds, but the thing is, as a talent, you just couldn't get better than Benoit.
Yes, this is true. And in general, I'm into the old school puroresu. Yeah, of course. Japanese style.
Riki Choshu.
Yeah. And the whole martial arts thing and the attitude that they have.
Mm-hmm. But your favorites there? Some names?
No. Mutoh, even Inoki. Akira Maeda. The Gotch family. They used to go UFC guys, the Gotch family.
What about like Misawa and the All Japan guys?
Of course, those two and Tiger Mask and Liger. And maybe those people because they are so much like the comic book characters come to life.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. I think for me, like the older that I got, though, then I started to appreciate guys like, let's say, Finlay, especially. When you understand, as being a heel, working as a heel, and then learning to maximize what you do, your time in the ring, your minutes in the ring. Like Jim Ross often says, that you maximize your minutes. And I think Finlay was a master of that. So that's like, the older that I got, I started to look up to guys like Finlay. Even Triple H, I mean, for the way that he commandeered his matches, I think that he was pretty smart about it.
Yeah, you have to be at that level.
Yeah, of course. So what is it that, like, after all these years, you'd like to impart to the coming generation or the new generation of wrestlers? Because, of course, I mean, there's a certain... something gets lost in translation as the years go by. I think some of the etiquette and some of the lessons that should have been passed on by previous, older wrestlers haven't been really effectively passed on to the newer stock. And for whatever reason that is, maybe they just gave up, they just haven't bothered. Maybe it's like they didn't feel like they had enough ears that would listen to them, that they just lost the oomph, to continue and push forward. I'm not sure what it is, but what is it that you would like to impart to the younger generation? Where would you like to see the pro wrestling industry and the business in general go once your time is done?
Do not take things for granted. Like when I started, it took me many years, almost 10 years, just to prepare myself before I even became a trainee. I was thinking about that, and that was my goal, to get to train wrestling in the first place.
I think it was Michael Kovac from Austria who said that you can build a body or you can learn to wrestle inside of 1 or 2 years. Like even inside of a year, you can actually learn, if you're talented, you can learn how to wrestle. But it might take you 5 years to build a strong body.
Yeah.
And that's where, like for me at least, the one thing that eats me alive nowadays is how many guys, even in the WWE, they're wrestling in shirts and sneakers. It's like it never used to be that way, where you'd have to have a good set of gear, you'd have to have a solid look in it. This has always been an upper body business. But nowadays it's almost like it's become all-inclusive, where anybody can get in. And the wrestling industry is more or less open the door for anybody just to enter the business if they pay tuition and pay for the course. And I don't think it's done any favors for our business, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely not. But another thing is that if you get to a certain level, that should not be enough, but you should keep evolving all the time until the end.
Well, the thing is, I think that once you get high enough, it's like any infrastructure or any business that, you can't become, let's say, a boss or a CEO or anything, or you can't become a world-renowned master of your craft if you're stuck in a comfort zone and you never bother to evolve. But I think, like, so outside of what you just mentioned, what else is it that you'd want to pass on to the next generation going forward from here?
As I think about the whole business now, I should, I would want it to be more like focused on the actual wrestling, the art of not just grappling, but the wrestling like it should be.
Like catch as catch can?
Yeah, that is the basis of it, but we're talking pro style, so we should not think about it as any sort of like an exhibition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that really eats me alive nowadays, is that all too many of these younger wrestlers, what they consider themselves, I think it's because of the WWE slant on the way that they've coined themselves nowadays, but they think of themselves as performers, and
it shows.
Yeah, and of course, it does show it. The thing is that if you don't feel it yourself, if you don't take yourself seriously inside the ring, and if you don't think of yourself as an athlete first and foremost, you're not going to translate as an athlete to the audience, and that's
outside the ring as well.
Yeah, of course. You have to carry yourself with dignity and protect the business.
Yeah,
I think that's the one thing in the internet age and the internet era, where like the fourth wall has been, or the fourth curtain has been done away with, and then of course everybody's winking to their audience, and it hasn't certainly done any favors to our business.
Yeah, and even to the audience, it's not a good thing.
No, and the thing is, I think that I often make a cross parallel to Led Zeppelin, that back in the 70s they used to backmask spin the records backwards and backmask some of the Led Zeppelin albums. I remember Stairway to Heaven has the backmask message, which is pretty clear, and oftentimes they actually surmised and they thought that is Jimmy Page the bastard son of Aleister Crowley. That was like a common train of thought or question that popped up from time to time. And the thing is that if we knew the answer, it would be, the mystique would be done. It would be ruined. But the fact that we don't know, that's where the mystique lies. If there's still some, for lack of a better term, at least like a veil of illusion. And I think that with pro wrestling, we have to take it back. We have to, pull back, not open up the curtain, but like close it shut to a certain degree, because it's like there's a certain area where the outside world just doesn't belong. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any favors, not for the fans, not for the wrestlers, not for the industry.
Yeah, and they should want to keep it that way, really.
Exactly, yeah. I think me personally, I think that I'd like to see the business just become more legitimate. I remember there was, do you remember this one Japanese promotion called the UWFI?
Yeah.
Like around 1984, 85, 86, yeah. Where Nobuhiko Takada and was it Satoru Sayama and some of the other guys, they broke off from New Japan, Akira Maeda, and they went and they formulated their own company. And I remember the one thing that they did was they stripped away all of the maneuvers and all of the sequences that would require too much collusion between the two counterparts. So therefore, all the leapfrogs were finished. No more leapfrogs, right? And just as one move, but still, I mean, it's like, even like a Hurricane Rana, if you can't pull that thing off, that you can believe take somebody down, you shouldn't be doing it. And it reminds me of also what Bret Hart said many years ago, that he's a big fan of Sabu, but he has got a big problem with Sabu too. And that is that if you can't reasonably defend or argue like apologetically why you would do, or how you could get away with doing a certain type of move inside of a bar fight, then you shouldn't be doing it in the ring either.
Yes.
And that's when you're still treating the match as a competitive contest. It's not a performance. It's not a sports entertainment spectacle. It's an actual wrestling match. That's the psychology. But now I think that there's so many people that have done away with that, that train of thought, that it's only just a bunch of goofy spots. And I think that so many of these younger wrestlers, they just want to show, of course, like even in our younger days, we wanted to show our audience everything that we knew, right? So in the context of a match, you become overindulgent. But I think that that's where you really have to understand that you have to listen to the veterans, and you've got to take direction. And in doing so, you actually strip away. You only do that which you know how to do really damn well.
Yes, and you don't need to do anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
It's good enough for the audience.
Exactly, yeah. So, at this point in your career, you still feel good and you're still willing to go.
Yeah.
What do you want to achieve still? What is it that you still want to achieve in our business?
Well, I've been the Finnish champion. I am the Nordic champion, and I had a world championship in women's wives carrying. So maybe I should get to become a European champion also.
Well, there you go, European. The thing is that I think that me personally, I'd still like to wrestle in Mexico. I've never been to Mexico. I was offered to go in 1994 by Ultimo Dragon, Yoshihiro Asai. And I used to drive him to the gym during a tour of Winnipeg and of Manitoba. And for a week, every day I drove him to the gym. And as kind of a token of his appreciation, he asked me one day that, you like to go Mexico? I said, I don't know how to wrestle lucha. And he said, oh, no, lucha easy. You give me tape, I bring to Mexico. And I never gave him my VHS tape of my matches up to that point. I've only been in the business for like 2 years. But I regret it to this day. And the one thing that I really believe in this life is that I don't want to live with regrets. And it's really a bitch to carry around a bag of regrets or any regrets whatsoever. And if I could do something over in my career, I'd go back to 1994 to November of 94. And I would absolutely, it was 95, sorry. But still, November of 95, I'd go back there And I'd say to Ultimo, I'd say that, yes, I will send you that tape next week. I'll mail it out to you to Mexico City next week.
Yeah.
Right? And it's because the thing is that none of us are masters when we start, right? Everybody starts at a certain level of incompetence. And it's even like Vampiro, who wrestled in Mexico for such a long time. He became the most popular foreign gringo wrestler in all of Mexico. You know, Chris Jericho, my friend, was as Corazon de Leon, he was the second most popular in the mid-90s. He was voted by the press. But Vampiro was the number one. And he sucked major ass when he went to Japan.
Yeah.
Not to Japan, but
yes.
to Mexico. And I remember talking to him in Italy, and he actually openly admitted that he sucked. And he knew that he sucked, but he took that chance. And that's the whole thing, that he didn't shy away from the opportunity when it was presented to him. And if I could do anything over again, I would definitely take that offer, or take Ultimo Dragon up on his offer. And I'd love to still go to Mexico at this time. The doors haven't been opened yet, and that's the one regret that I have in my career. But outside of that, I'd still like to go wrestle in, for example, Africa, South Africa, the Arab countries, yes. Maybe Israel. I'd still like to do that.
Yeah, and actually the most important thing with making mistakes is that you don't repeat those.
Exactly, yeah. You learn from your mistakes. And that's where you pass it on also to the next generation, where, you know, what not to do, what to do, and then what not to do. But yeah, so I think that just to sum it up, I think both of us would like to see a certain legitimacy brought back to pro wrestling.
Yes.
A credibility, a believability.
It used to be about that, yes. The whole business used to be that was the reason why people wanted to see it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So why would you want to pay a ticket to see something which you know is bullshit? It doesn't give you any reason to invest in that product. But if you can make somebody believe, if you can actually have people care about the outcome, if they care not just about the wrestlers, but about the outcome itself, and they believe that there's a certain jeopardy and there's a certain legitimacy to what you do, then I think that's where the money lies.
Mm. Also, we as wrestlers, why would we want to do something like that, which is not really worth doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that all in all, it's we had a great career up to now, both of us. But as veterans, I think that we can still have a lot to offer to the next generation, and as we move forward, that we're not finished yet.
I agree.